All right, and we are back with today's debate. Welcome everyone to the Treasurer edition of the MUSA 20 election debates. For quick introductions, we have Namira and Harisha, our MUSA 2021 candidates for this election. Of course, my name is Raif, and Harish there will be the stream manager, and will later invite Felicia and Matt, the current office bearers, for the position. To go into what we'll be doing for this debate session, we'll start off with 7 minutes of an opening statement by Namira and Harsha before going on to a Q&A session with Matt and Felicia, the office bearers, followed by a Q&A sessions from the public. So if you are watching on the live stream, do send in your questions via the YouTube chat. And of course, then we'll wrap up with 5 minutes of closing statements. So to begin, Harisha and Namira, the floor is yours.
Hey, hi, good evening, and thanks to everyone involved in making this election possible and make it run smoothly. We would like to start off by first introducing ourselves. So, I'm Namira,
And I'm Harisha Kaur.
and we are currently business students in Monash who are planning to pursue accounting as the focus of their study. We have always been quite outspoken about things that we know we can try to make a difference in. And since the MUSA's treasurer's job is to basically relay the message to the finance department, which students view as the pathway to making their expectations come true, especially with the change in the allocations of our funds approaching the next year. Instead of focusing on the problem, we want to focus on solutions. We both have experience with leadership roles and have a good grasp of accounting, so we are going to adapt to the best of our capabilities.
Moving on to our manifestos, we aim to promote a guideline set out. As treasurers of an organization, we recognize the importance of integrity, discipline, and certain levels of professionalism in handling financial matters. We plan to provide support training for proper bookkeeping practices to all our subcommittee members and extend the invitation to other departments' treasurer members. This will help equip our members with the necessary knowledge and skills to effectively carry out treasurer's functions. We'll work to keep our subcommittee divisions in loop with the current changes and updates through a shared drive so as to prepare ourselves if the RMCO situation persists.
So our second goal is to always be available for assistance. We are planning to have increased communication and connectivity between the budgeting committee and the students. We're trying to achieve this by making sure we have a slot in each and every division's Instagram pages and Facebook pages. We're trying to take into account two types of situations. First of all, some people want to remain anonymous, so we're thinking of the Padlet platform, since that allows people to post their concerns and opinions anonymously, and it's open to everyone, and also our answers could be shown there. This just shows our motivation to stay transparent, our commitment as well. And the second one is where people want us to directly deal with them, so we want to enable that through ID or FB messaging. We're going to be as active as possible in aiding anyone new to the process.
Next, we want to construct an environment for transparency and make sure students are aware of their right to access financial reports as well as where they can gain access to it. We're hoping to collaborate with all other treasury departments to prepare graphical analysis of the reports and releasing them on a shared social media account. This is done in the efforts of presenting the financial information much more concisely and visually appealing for students to understand. For example, preparing a pie chart analysis of the spending summary each month of all departments will enable students to understand how funds are utilized within the university settings. We don't only owe a duty to explain how funds flow to our members, but also to other students who are paying for the fee.
Yeah. One of our other goals is to push for grants if the situation arises. Since we are your voice, we will make sure to listen to your problems and adjust our grants accordingly. We are basically going to relay messages to the finance department and make sure everyone has equal opportunities to work to gain access to those funds. This is to reassure that we will try to communicate your needs to the higher ups.
If we are elected as treasurers, we will work to foster an inclusive environment involving collaborative efforts and integration between all departments. We welcome students from other schools and from other backgrounds other than accounting to join our subcommittee, as we are strong believers of interdependency, and we will provide assistance best to our capabilities and within our jurisdiction. There will not be any shortcomings on the quality of our work because early trainings will be conducted to close any information gap.
Lastly, we're aiming to provide you with the value for our fees and bridge the gap between expectations and reality. We're setting several communication platforms to acknowledge students' expectation first. And then we're planning to allocate funds to popular vote of students so that their expectations could turn to reality. This is just one method. So, in conclusion, if we get elected as treasurers, our mission would be to create an atmosphere of interdependence, to bring attention to resources that already exist by presenting them in a much more graphical form, to solidify foundations that have already been laid down, and to foster an inclusive environment. That's all.
All right. Thank you, Harisha and Namira, for your opening statement. We shall now invite Matthew and Felicia, the current office bearers, to join us for the office bearer Q&A session.
Hi,
And
can you
Felicia.
guys hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, congratulations on the speech. I thought it was really well put together. But I'll go ahead with the first question, which is regarding transparency. I will ask my question first, and I'll give more comments on what you mentioned in your speech. So, as MUSA funds directly derives from the student amenities fees, and as MUSA treasurers, how will you ensure more transparency between student body and the expenditures of MUSA departments and divisions? So, from my understanding, you guys said that you want to provide graphical information to the students. But my question to you now is, how how would the graphical information benefit the students? Because you're looking at MUSA initiatives, right? They're all very unique. To like every single initiative is unique. So how are you going to provide a pie chart that shows each event that may end up being more misleading than beneficial? Because if you're comparing something like Monash Ball to an outing, an SOB outing, which it doesn't really provide the students much information other than the fact that this amount is being used for one event and the other one being used for the other. So it may be misleading in that way. So can you guys answer um, how graphical information might benefit?
Mhm. So, Harsha, do you want to take this or do you want me to take it?
Um, I can start and then you can add if you have any extra points. What we planned initially to do was from the funds that we take out every month, we are going to explain to students how they are being used for each division. So if let's say we took out 50,000 this month, and we need to show them the breakdown of how it's being used and how much revenue has been gathered from those events. So essentially, it's just to let them know it won't be the best analysis because it's per month, but the whole semester, analyzing the funds from the whole throughout the whole semester will provide a more accurate description, I would say.
Hmm.
What do you think, Namira?
Also, we are also planning to give like a key takeaway. So, interpreting the data. The the fact that we are trying to have popular vote the events, that it could also show them that what their decisions directly. We have listened to their voice directly. It could also show them which ones they should choose and what is the effect of choosing them.
Okay.
It
On
won't be.
top, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Amira.
Yeah, no, you can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds quite useful on as well as typically that is not what usually the Musa treasures do. So it's a good initiative on your part, we believe. On top of that, what other initiative that will you and Harisha would do to increase the transparency of Musa expenditures? Because typically what Musa treasures would do is just they would just upload end of the year expenditures to the MUSA website, but now as the current also MUSA website is coming down. So what other initiative are you guys planning to increase the transparency and increase the knowledge and awareness of these MUSA expenditures to the students?
All right. So it is really related to the question just asked now. So our frequency is I like monthly or bi-monthly, but that is yet to be decided. And we are trying to get each division to post it on their stories for each bi-monthly or month, and then put it in a highlight. Since that is a much more efficient way than just putting it in an archive or a website, because people don't really want to view that. Also, people don't really know the outreach is not as good. But the stories people always view it, and I know there's a good reach of Instagram stories.
Okay, I want to just add on one last thing. With transparency, as we can see in the past, I'm not sure if you guys have ever experienced this, but sometimes, because as you mentioned earlier, providing graphical information might not be the best, and it's okay. You know, that is your initiative, the one that you want to bring on board, which I think is also good if you carry it out properly. But my point is, if somehow you provide the information and it may be misleading and students may be upset by that, how are you going to deal with that? Because with transparency comes criticism as well from the students. So how would you deal with the criticism?
Are you trying to like ask me like the wasteful expenses?
Um, I'll give you an example. So if, for example, you spend a few thousand ringgit on coaches, and then they will be confused, like, how come the coaches are so expensive? The money could have been directed someplace else. Like, how do you deal with that form of criticism?
Okay. So first of all, when we post this, we can also ask them to inquire us if they want to know full details of it. Since obviously they can't assume everything, they have to know the situation as well. I could blindly go through all the reports right now, and I would be so confused to compare two of the years. But right down, like below of those reports, there's a few explanation and questions which explain everything. So that part, that's always in the archive, and we could always write, please go to this website to search for further explanation. The
Okay,
archive.
that's great. That's great. Okay, I'll move on to the next question. So, how will you ensure that MUSA departments or divisions, and even yourselves, to be held accountable for any and all expenditures, as well as ensure that there will be no form of embezzlement or misappropriation of the MUSA funds?
Who would like to take the question?
Okay, hi. To answer that question, like what we said, we are planning to provide proper bookkeeping trainings, and hopefully, our team members would be equipped with the necessary knowledge to conduct
I guess Harisha has some connection issues.
I
Sorry,
can.
my line.
All right, yeah. Namira, could you?
Do you want me to open if your connection is unstable?
Yes, Harisha, could you perhaps reconnect to whatever internet source you have? Yeah. All right, Namira, do you have a? Could you answer that question on the two of your behalves?
Yeah. As we know, if there was misappropriation of funds or anyone actually embezzled it's a rule in the handbook that we have to actually investigate it first and find out the people who are involved. And then whoever actually is involved in it will get terminated, if I'm not mistaken. And since this is something unexpected, we can hope to also recover this problem to embezzlement. I realize that this would also show like a bad image for our committee, but sometimes we can't expect like everything. And we are searching for solutions. We're trying to also make sure we can reimburse in this situation. So we are going to try to handle the situation to the best of our capabilities by finding solutions and trying to make sure that the people don't focus on the problem but on the solution. Does it answer?
Yeah, that does. I'll move on to the next question then. Thank you so much. Um, Okay, so the next question is, do you plan for any initiative that would encourage students to learn the structure of the student amenities fees and MUSA funds, as often a lot of students are unaware on where and how does MUSA gets its funds and the limitation that MUSA can spend on. So basically be more external and interact with the students in this way. Yeah.
So as you know, every year there's not every year, but most years there has been this rate structuring. The changes are very sudden, I would say. Not sudden, but outside the students don't really know, and it's sudden to them. So as an introduction, I could actually make an informative video and ask them to see it if they want to see it, and it's gonna be really short because
Mm,
it's not very complicated if you see it. It's just breaking down the SSA. It's just
okay.
40%.
Mm, okay. Is that fair enough, Matt? Do you have anything else to add on?
Nothing else to add on. Yep.
Okay, Matt.
Moving on to the next question. Yeah. So this will be on more of the touchy subject on the matters of the next year's MUSA budget. So the first question is, with the potential restructuring of the student amenities fees and student amenities fees future allocation and also the reduction in MUSA's funds, do you have any potential solutions or initiatives to help MUSA departments and divisions to either increase their revenue stream or decrease their expected costs?
So to decrease, okay, I think Harisha should take this. Hey Harisha, is their internet stable?
Yeah, it's much more stable now. Thank you. As for initiatives to manage the funds more effectively, we would say that we're planning to hold a poll and like get students get students involved in deciding which events plays more important in their lives as students in the university, and we are also suggesting external sponsorship as a solution for these budget cuts. So by involving external sponsors, they get to market their brands as well as helping with the funds allocation. Sorry.
For a follow-up questions on that is how you previously stated you guys would do a poll on the popularity of event. How would you handle if let's say this department who is more is a very there's this department, let's say example activities, and the typical flagship event is let's say Monash Ball, and let's say it's on top of this poll when you guys do this poll, right? There has it's not really popular in terms of those that did the poll. So how you go I'm just my question is how you planning to manage this
Mm.
manage between all the Musa departments on whether when let's say when you did this poll and there are some flagship events that have not been it's not popular amongst the students.
You mean how are we going to communicate them to the department leaders? Is that
Yes, and how are you going to yeah, how are you going to communicate this to the departments and who really wish that they could do this event in for your term?
they could still do their event, but then this popularity votes will determine how much of the proportion of the budgets are being allocated to help in the events process itself. So what we are saying is that departments can still go ahead with their planned events, but provided they need to get their own sponsorship and fundraise to add funds to this in ensuring that the events is a success. And our role as treasurers, we could also help getting more involved in planning these events. So let's say Monash Ball. From what we have learned is that the food is very pricey and as well as the venue. So we are going to get them to get more uh, to involve more vendors and choosing from a larger pool of choices. So the cheapest would be an option, as well as taking into account of the quality of the services they provide as well. So you're not limiting the options to to the vendors and the caterers that have been providing services from previous years, but we are opening up options to new caterers, new vendors that can provide the same quality at a cheaper price.
Yeah, and to add on, like to make sure that we are getting the best results from the poll, Marisha and I planned that we're trying to work with publicity, MUSA publicity, and also the schools, because there are also events that are very specific to the schools, right, which are quite big. So the thing is, we want to make sure in the orientation programs itself, they introduce the all the events, so people know what they're signing up for. They would
Okay.
what to expect and what they want to happen.
I see.
So they would be
So
informed when they make this when they submit their results, their polls, as well as getting more departments involved in the process would actually help smoothen the transition flow of these budget cuts. Thank you.
okay, I would like to give a follow-up comment on this. So basically, you made a statement saying that you will be more involved with the planning, and although it is up to your initiative on whether you want to be involved with the planning or not, I would say that in a typical normal year without the pandemic, you guys will be super overwhelmed with all the money requests that is coming in, and I can already say that you probably won't have the time to help look for cheaper alternatives and stuff. And also, if you have seen the budget proposal, they have quotations stating different vendors, different venues and stuff at different price ranges and different benefits. And that's already a system that's already in place that lets you see that these departments have done their research and also that they're saving on costs. So and also this budget cut is not a very small budget cut, it's a lot. And although yes, you are supposed to give the departments the freedom on whether what events they need to do, sometimes you need to step in and tell them that there's only so much that you can concentrate on. So our question now is how I'm so sorry, I'm going a bit like how would you prioritize which events need to go on and which events might not be able to go on with the limited budget that you have?
So
Um, Sorry, we would advise that the departments um, they concentrate more on their job scopes, so they handle events that are within their jurisdiction. This will allow. Sorry, Namira, would you like to add?
yeah, this would allow to make sure the spending is done there only, and we are not double spending the same money doing the quite similar event or quite similar type of event in another department or division. Not division, right? Only department. So another thing is, wait, can you just say the question a bit, like the last part again?
Okay, so the last part of my question was that I after pointing out all those issues, um, because it's such a large budget cut, it might it might come down to the choice whether which events need to be prioritized, because that is something me and Matt really do have to deal with this year, and it's not an easy thing. So I just want to ask, like, how are you going to deal with it? Because Matthew already said, like, if it's based on popularity, I mean, you guys brought that up, right? If it's based on popularity, how are you going to deal with that?
Okay. So also, I know that some people are going to feel like they're left out in the popularity thing. But if they see that the event that they didn't actually vote for it because they abstained for it, maybe basically now the problem that I think is the participation in all of these. So just because people are abstaining, we are not getting what most of the people need. And also, I think how we are going to allocate to make sure that we are keeping up with the budget cut. This is not only or which events to keep. This is not only like our job. I think EMS and everyone, we all have to have. EMS also helps in seeing which ones are good, which ones should be accepted, and also we make sure that all departments and divisions together, we come together and decide on it. So this is something that we would need a meeting for it. It's not something that we alone would do. You know what I mean, right?
We can't decide on it right now because we have to take a lot of factors into considerations, and we are planning to properly analyze all the cost and benefits involved, as well as doing a proper pastel analysis, so as to be able to identify all the other elements that should be taken into consideration. So it's not just the students' popularity votes. We have to get the feedback from the parents and
Oh, okay. It seems that we have lost Harisha again. Uh, Perhaps we'll wait for her to come back to finish the question. Unless Namira, would you like to add anything to that? If not, we could wait.
Yeah, we can wait.
Okay, all right. We move on to the next question, perhaps.
I think Matt
Yes.
wants to follow up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a follow-up question. It's basically a hypothetical question, as this is typical since the Musa treasurer is the middle person between those departments and divisions as well, and the finance department and upper management of Monash University. So the hypothetical question is that, let's say a department is does not agree with your decision making, how would you handle it? Like they still insist that the budgeted amount they would want for this specific event or this for their specific department, would they want to maintain that specific amount rather than decrease it? So hypothetically, how would you manage this issue?
So they're not happy that they didn't get enough, is what you're trying to say.
They're not happy and they insist that they would still want to maintain that amount that they proposed.
Mm. So first of all, I would like them to explain in detail why they think this is actually necessary. And how necessary is it? Like, how necessary is it to improve student life? And if they have any other alternatives, if there is no alternatives at all that could do serve the same benefit. Because this is compromised by not only me but also all the other departments. This is an interdependency. This is I'm not we are not the only department. It's 16 departments all together for trying to share the budget. So we all have to be considerate.
Okay, I think to follow up on the restructuring question, the restructure of the MIT Swiss question also, how would you effectively allocate the significantly reduced MUSA funds to all MUSA departments and divisions? As you may know from our previous years, typically on normal semester, normal term, a normal year, departments such as activities, welfare, CNS, movies often have a budget ranging between 150,000 ringgit to 200,000 ringgit each per division per department. So how are you planning to effectively allocate all this budget to using a significantly reduced budget to all these departments and divisions?
So of course, for this to happen, we have to have like a talk with the department first, right? I can't. It's not like also their treasurers are supposed to work with me as well. Also, their operations are supposed to come up with plans that make sure it fits into the budget as well. And the budget reduction, we have to all share it, so they have to be considered as well. Because I can't bring the money out of thin air, if you know what I mean. It's not really me.
Then I think there's also the issue of when usually this is an issue that has been throughout most of the MUSA years, previous years, in where some schools, but in when looking at school representatives, some schools, particularly school of business, what they felt is that they sometimes they do have lower budgets compared to other schools, yet they still have the largest population in the school amount. So largest population in Monash University, Malaysia specifically. So how are you also going to compromise between their statement where a hypothetical situation lah on where where the school of business insists for have a larger budget compared to other school, and also the other school still insist to have a big budget as well.
So School of Business, I know that they can also they can also liaise with CMO for their stuff. But you're saying if another department, basically, right? they both are fighting for the bigger budget.
Yes. Yeah.
So we have to first of all see both what their treasurers and what their activities people are actually proposing to us. And it's basically this is that it only comes to treasurers after it's been approved by a lot of people, right? It's not only it's the EMS itself. Then only treasurers get the amount they want, and then only we ask for the funds.
No, this is
Um,
typically at the start of the year where
yeah.
The
where
budget in
departments and divisions. Yeah.
Mhm.
correct.
Okay,
Then all
just
five states would follow the similar structure. We have to see, and they have to put up they have to put up their own presentation and say why they think. Because
mm,
whoever can justify it better and whoever can show us that they deserve it better can actually get it, right? It's not about numbers, it's also about the quality of stuff they're planning to do.
okay. I would like to like add up on this.
Oh yeah,
So,
apologies. We do have to move on to the public Q&A section.
okay, sure.
But just to acknowledge that the session has started. However, we don't have any questions. So a reminder to the audience, if you are watching, to send in your questions via the YouTube chat option. In the meantime, while we wait for those questions to come in, yes, sorry Felicia, please do continue.
Yeah, sure. So I would just like to add on, like, you mentioned just now that everyone has to be considerate in the situation that, there's a huge budget cut and it doesn't just affect one department, in fact, it affects everyone and everyone has to make sacrifices on their own, right? But yes, that is something that we should expect of everyone involved in using the budget. But at the same time, like I would like to ask you, like as a of leader of allocating the budget, you're dealing with a lot of people, especially like even though clubs and society is a division, how are you gonna lead these treasurers to give like them the expectation because CNS they're dealing with a lot of students and communicating that there's a budget cut isn't really the easiest thing to do, especially with a large group of people. So I want to know as a leader, how would you actually change that sort of expectation amongst everyone?
You mean handling the announcement itself, right?
Not just the announcement, but the mindset towards budget allocation, because um, it's very important that people keep their expectations to a certain level when making the budget, or else everyone would be fighting over the budget allocation and stuff, and it's very unproductive sometimes. So how would you alleviate that unproductiveness, and how would you create this expectation for these people?
Hmm. Risha, do you
Mm.
want to? Is there a connection? All right.
Yeah, it's much better now. We would say that we are trying with the budget cuts. It's not going to create limitations for us in terms of providing good quality services and events, planned events, but we are aiming to reduce any inefficiencies that lie within the department itself. Um, so, in simple terms, we're hoping that this budget cut wouldn't change anything, but to enhance our productivity within the departments and reduce any wasteful expenditure. And if we still are short of funds, we are hoping that the external funding would be a good initiative to bridge the gaps between the reality and the expectations.
I would like to add on that as well. There's That's a really good initiative, by the way, to alleviate all the inefficiency in budget allocation and stuff like that. But right now, my question is more targeted towards the expectation, because even though you can eliminate all the inefficiencies, there are going to be departments who are expecting to receive this amount of money because they want to carry out a specific event that may require this amount of money, even at the most efficient way possible. It's still it still goes back to the expectation. How are you gonna impact all the people involved in using the budget in order for them to come to an understanding that there has been a budget cut and everyone has to be more financially prudent and more understanding that other departments need money as well.
Hmm. I know some
Um,
traditional. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Sorry.
Sorry, you were saying?
Yeah, you can continue. Uh,
Um, I think if situation arises and if we see any similarity in events planned by different departments, we are hoping that we could suggest to them to join their events and have it as one instead of two separate events which bring the same benefits to the students.
unless we're
Yeah.
talking about the traditional events, right?
Unless, yeah, it's traditional. Traditional would be a separate thing. And, but like Freshies Night and Talent Night, for example, we could incorporate both of them. What do you think, Namira?
Yeah. So basically, we're saying that even the traditional events they comprise of what all the it is open to all of the departments and like the Monash Cup, it is not limited to anyone. So even though those really take up a lot of funds, it it really it benefits most people.
Okay, may I follow up on this because I think you guys are still misunderstanding my question. So
Hmm.
actually what I'm trying to say is that it's not more on event management, it's more of like the expectation. So how are you going to change the mindset of people, even your own? So basically it starts off from the mindset and expectation of building a budget because it's someone, for example me, is gonna go into planning a budget thinking that you know um I want the best for my department. I want to carry on all the traditional activities. I want to carry on everything to the full capacity as his like in the past. How are you gonna make sure that that expectation is managed? Because if the expectation is like that, I can guarantee you that a lot of departments will come to you with really large numbers and it's going to prove to you to have a difficult time. So, my question again, I'm going to state it again, is how you're going to, as a leader, manage the expectation of your teams regarding budget allocation.
So you basically mean how are we going to reassure them, right?
Not just reassure them, but make sure to be to how you're going to approach giving them this information and making sure that they understand that this is the reality and that they have to accommodate for that reality.
Hmm.
Can I say something? Um,
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning of the year, we could have a meeting with all the departments and make sure that they are aware of all the funds that we are receiving, and we have to explain and be very transparent with the reality here, so that it won't blur their judgment when they're making these planned events. So they can take that into consideration when they're planning the events so as not to overstate the budgets or their revenue.
Yeah, because we're not the only leaders; they're also leaders of their own community.
Yes,
So,
okay, to follow up on that, in terms of finances, you guys are the leaders of
hmm,
the managing the finances. So even though yes, they are all leaders of their own departments, yes, they're leaders in planning their own events, but you're leaders of managing MUSA finances. So I'm talking about you how are you going to establish that you are the authority here in terms of making sure that everything goes well with managing MUSA finances and that everything is planned so that in the future when MUSA departments and divisions are having events that everything will go smoothly. I'm talking about, okay, let me say it again. I'm talking about budget allocation. So when you're talking about the beginning of the year, it's a little bit too late because you'll be planning the budget allocation in the coming months after you're elected. So this year. So I'm talking about this process. I'm not talking about when the budget has been already set. I'm talking about allocating the budget, the process of it, and managing the expectations again. I'm
so
sorry, I know this is a very hard question. It's just I really want to inform you guys and also think about it because this is something that you really need to consider.
So hoping that everyone from our party, the ACM party, gets elected, we know that everyone is preparing the best for it, and we know that they're not very negative about it. They're not thinking of it as a half full, but I mean half empty, but a half full thing. So since they're informed already from now on, it's really helpful because they know what to do. So our teamwork there, even if it's someone not from our party, we're gonna make sure they know it. And if they're joining this live, they already know it, I think. It's not like we don't have any budget. You see, like we still have money, and to adapt is the best skill for any leader.
Okay.
Matt and Felicia, do you have a follow-up or a different question, perhaps?
No, it's okay. I think I've said everything that I wanted to say.
Just one last question for me is just on regarding the let's hypothetical situation as well.
Mhm.
Uh-oh.
On let's department, should
Yeah.
department or division overspend their allocated budget?
Matt, sorry about that. You cut out for a bit there. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Should a department or division overspend their allocated budget? This is later in the year. More specifically, yeah. Should they overspend their allocated budget? How are you going to handle? How are you going to approach this issue?
We do have buffer funds, right? If I'm not mistaken, we do have buffer funds, and it's up to us to decide on the percentage of the fees that we get to put aside as buffer funds in case situation arises and people overspend. So
Yeah. We're
I
going to
guess
try to negotiate for a higher buffer fund since our cuts have been higher as well. But it all depends on the process once we're elected. This is something we can't be involved in right now.
yes.
Another hypothetical situation whereby the buffer funds are not uh the buffer funds are not cannot be used, whereby let's say a department is really going over their budget. So this is more on how you're going to manage your term as well as managing the other departments, because again Musa Treasurers is the middle person between um the departments and Monash University, and you have the responsibility on managing this fund and ensuring that these funds does not go over the limit of your total funds lah. So again, let's say taking out buffer funds, approach how would you inform this department specifically? Let's say they're going over their budget, and then how are you going to inform them and approach this issue?
Okay. First of all, we're going to try to see if they have any revenue. It's not like sometimes some departments not only have expenses but also revenue. We're going to see if it's positive. If not, we're going to try to see if other departments are ready to transfer their funds to help them out. Those are some alternative ways.
I don't think I have any other questions for me, Felicia.
I think this is more of a statement, but just now Harisha, you said that Musa treasurers have buffer funds, and the reason why me and Matt have buffer funds this year, or there were buffer funds in 2019, is because it was allocated by either the president or the treasurers. I mean, in the end of the day, it's the treasurers that allocate it, right? So you still can't 100% rely on the fact that you might get buffer funds, and like always to remember to prepare yourself, because sometimes you plan for something to go a certain way with the funds but it might not get approved, because buffer funds is essentially just money lying there with no allocation. And when you present something like that to finance or student life, obviously in the real corporate world, having uncertainty with a large amount of money isn't ideal, and it might not even be approved. But it's just more of like a warning to manage your expectations with this as well. We have buffer funds this year because our justification is that it's been a very uncertain year, and I'm not sure how it is going to be in the future. But yeah, it really depends on every single year. You can rely on historical, like what has happened in the past, but whatever you're dealing with in the future will always be different from what we deal with in the previous year. So it's yeah, this is more of a statement than a question. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. We know that we know that we need the experience uh, for
Yeah.
yeah.
All
You know,
right.
we
Yep.
said a lot of stuff, but we have to also be involved in it directly to learn a lot as well. And we're going to make sure that whatever we say, we try to do it to the best of our capabilities.
We'll learn more once we are more involved in the process. So now
Definitely.
all we can do is imagine what the
Mm.
reality is all going to be.
Mm.
So we're hoping to perform to our best and serve the students because we are their voices.
Mm.
Okay.
All right. Yep. Felicia and Matt, is that it for your follow-ups and your questions? Do you have any more?
Yeah.
Okay.
No more
All right.
questions. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so it is unfortunately we do not have any questions at the moment from the public audience. So another call for anyone here watching. If you would like to send in your questions, please send them by the YouTube chat. We'll wait for a bit. If not, we'll wait for a bit more, and if there aren't any still, we'll move on to the closing statements. And while we wait, we'll go through the remaining activities for the election. Today is the final day of debates. We have approximately 3 more debates for the rest of the day. The General Secretary at 5:45, Vice President session at 7, and then of course the President session at 8:15. Um, Yes, so if you'd like to continue tuning in, just feel free to visit the same channel that you're watching it now, and we'll see you all later then. If you'd like a bit more information about what the candidates, who they are, what their manifestos are, check out the MUSA Instagram page and of course the election website. Details there as well on the Instagram page. And yep. If you'd like to get informed, voting does start this Friday, Friday of week 6, and it will go all the way to Friday next week. By then, we'll know if the candidates get elected or not. Let's check again if there are any questions. Yes, there is one question from Garen Leong. Wait for it to pop up here in StreamYard. There's a bit of a delay. I'll read out the questions first then. Oh, wait for it. Oh, it's here. Okay, question by Garen. As treasurers, what will you do with the case of fraud in finance matters by any department, division, a reported case that is applied on the MUSA budget? Who would like to take the question? Both of you are muted, by the way. No worries.
Oh my god. Okay, Harisha, do you want or do you want me?
Um, you can start first.
All right. So basically, fraud is also mishandling, and I think I have mentioned it, but if anyone commits fraud, our first thing is to obviously investigate. And if it is a reported case, we'll make sure that the person that was reported is actually responsible for it. And I know that if anyone who has done these things, they can be terminated immediately. And we're going to try our best to also come up with a solution, like reimburse the event or the department that has suffered through this fraud. Does that answer the question? I hope so.
All right, yeah. Well, I suppose if Garen would like a follow up, he could send in another question. Well, it's another one by Jesslyn. We shall wait for it to come up here on StreamYard again. All right. How do you plan on reconciling the demands of the MUSA committee members as well as the restrictions from the admins? I understand this
You
was briefly discussed earlier, but maybe you could extend on that.
Do you mean the finance department by the admin and the student life?
It could be both.
I think they meant the higher departments, higher authority. Yeah.
Right. Arisha, you start first. I'm gonna add on.
Okay. How do you plan to reconcile the demands? We are aware of the budget cuts and we are planning to take appropriate steps to overcome the situation and the restrictions that it brings along. And all we can do is relay information from the finance department to the department leaders, and we're hoping to do it effectively. Namira?
Yeah, I was looking at the question. So
Yeah.
we already mentioned this point, and to like making sure we have to actually make a conversation between everyone. The restrictions, I'm pretty sure everyone knows. It's not something that's hidden, but there are sometimes, yeah, they might say no to it. And this is something that it might be hard to take, but that's the truth. Sometimes the reality, you have to accept it.
I see. All right. Yep. Jocelyn, if you do have a follow up, feel free to send it into the YouTube chat area. We'll move on to the next one by Heiko. Heiko's question. I might have missed your points earlier on, but you're uncontested, right? Met and Fell have paved a very intensive yet effective way by producing different SOPs for the departments to follow. How can I be sure that MUSA 2021 would be able to trust that you'll do your job instead of just saying it for the sake of this live debate? All right, yes. So, is there any guarantees or anything like that that you all could apply? I suppose that's Aiko's question.
So you could only know that if we are elected, right? This is not something we could give you like a, I don't know. I don't know what kind of guarantee you demand.
We can't convince you that we are making empty promises, but we can try our best to prove that you made the right choice in voting for us.
All right, yep. Just also again, Heiko, if you've got a follow up, please feel free to ask it. We've got another one by Jesslyn. Follow up on the previous one. What do you mean by effectively? Could you give us an SOP that you plan to carry out? SOP, of course, to the viewers are the standard of procedures. This is going back to the earlier question of how do you plan on reconciling the demands of the MUSA committee members as well as restrictions by admin?
Okay,
When you say restrictions by admins, what do you mean again?
yeah, because
Maybe I can clarify for Jocelyn. Is that okay?
Yep.
So when she means restrictions, right, it means like when student life is skeptical of the budget that you want to use or the money you want to spend it on, and like it takes, because of the bureaucracy, it might delay the time where the budget gets approved and stuff, and it really does affect event planning as well. So how do you combat that
we're going to
restriction?
encourage people to hand in their stuff as early as possible because this is actually their responsibility to make sure that things flow smoothly because if it's a time restraint, if that's what you meant, because if you're talking about restrictions, most of the restrictions, if you're in the MSc committee, you would know the restrictions and you would be aware of how to plan for it.
I think I would like to add on like sometimes the restrictions you're not unaware of. So for example, like we were hosting live stream events and we have live bands playing like for Freshie Night, for example, and we were unaware that we needed this what's it called? We needed a license for it, and we didn't know that that would be a restriction. And yeah, like how would you handle those type of unexpected restrictions? But I think this is going a little bit off topic. She's talking more about budget allocation. Like how would you come to a middle ground? from the restrictions provided by admins and the demands from MUSA members. That's what she meant.
Oh, you mean the license? But it also has to go through the other people, right? It's not really the treasurers who would point out that. It's the other members as well. So it has been not only missed by us, but other people.
I think all we could do is discuss with the department leaders and understand from their point of view how they are planning on presenting their case. And we bring that up to the higher authorities so as to reach a middle ground and find a common point and find a solution that satisfies both parties.
Hmm.
Right, yeah.
Also,
Sorry, Felicia, do you have a quick response to that?
Oh no.
Okay, so unfortunately, we have run out of time for the public Q&A session. If you do have any more questions, or if your questions were not asked, or you like a follow-up, feel free to visit Harisha and Namira's Know Your Candidates post on Instagram. You can ask them in the comment section, and they'll get to them there. Right, so apologies again, the time has run out. We do have to move on to the closing statement. So yes, Harisha and Namira, the floor is yours.
so it has been nice to give this speech, and we hope that if you have any questions, please come to us and ask us. We'll try to make sure that we explain it thoroughly to you. And but please also be more reasonable.
We're hoping to enhance your student university experience and deliver the best to our capabilities as
Yes.
treasurers. Yeah.
Yeah. No problem if you have the same question again and again. We are going to answer it to you.
Yes.
All right. Yes. So again, if you have any more questions, send them over to Harisha and Namira on their Know Your Candidates series post on Instagram. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Matt, Felicia. Thank you, Harisha and Namira, for attending. And goodbye, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye bye.